I never learned the Negro concept of victimization. And the reason why I never learned the concept of victimization and a victim mindset is due to the way I was raised by my mother and my father. See, when I was 7 years old, I had a brain aneurysm. And after the surgery, my mother insisted that I be held accountable and responsible for my behaviors and the way I acted ever since. And even though some teachers wanted to put me in special education because they thought there was something wrong with me, she insisted that I stay in the regular class. And she held me responsible and accountable for all my behaviors and my actions in that time. And I didn't know it at the time, but a brain aneurysm is a very, very fatal thing. And what happens usually is, in most cases, the person either winds up dying instantly or they wind up a vegetable. And I thank God that, you know, all these years later, that I'm here to speak to you right now because there chances are I may not have ever been able to be here with you had things gone the other two ways. And I didn't really appreciate, the opportunity God had given me, in allowing me to live and to be here many years ago. But my mother, she insisted that I take responsibility for myself, that I, continue to persevere, that I continue to push. And, people kept trying to say that I was retarded. They kept trying to say I was slow. And they kept trying to say that, that there was something wrong with me. But she kept insisting that there was nothing wrong with me. And she was right. And when I was 30 years old, I, did research on brain aneurysms. And that's how I began to understand that, people did overcome um, this this event in their life, and that there was nothing wrong with them, and they went on to have very successful careers and very happy lives. And what happened is, and that's all because a lot of these people never allow themselves to take on a victim mindset or allowed people to make excuses for them. And people used to do that for me all the time, especially in gym class. They wouldn't let me play basketball with them or other things or stuff like that. But then I would always try to continue to push. And then when I was in school in certain classes, people would try to say that I really couldn't do the work, and I would go on to do the work, and I would also many times wind up at the top of the class because I would always persevere and I would always push, and I would never, allow myself to remain a victim, because the whole thing with the victim mindset is it prevents you from actualizing your potential and being the person you can best person you can possibly be. When you wind up with this whole victimized way of thinking, you think, oh, woe is me, everybody's doing me wrong, and you never think, to take responsibility for your own life and your own decisions. And I've been forced, throughout my life to take responsibility for my own choices and my own decisions. But I wouldn't have taken those choices without my mother and my father pushing me back when I was 7, going on 8 years old after this operation. Because a lot of people, when I came back to school, wanted to put me on this road to victimization, and they kept trying to put me on this road to victimization. I mean, I had people in my own class saying that I was special and slow. And the sad part was, in many cases, I was doing better in school than many of the people around me. And when I got to junior high school, it got really crazy. I mean, people kept trying to put me in that victimization box. And, I kept trying to fight it. And this is something that, you have to continue to push against, because this victimization box is not a good place to be, because all it does is put limitations on you that you don't need to have on you. And when you think like a victim, you're always looking for somebody to pick you up, clean you up, and then you have to accept, crumbs from the table instead of going out to go get what you want. And that's something I learned I had to do, at a very early age, that if I wanted, things like awards or, just to get a book published like I did here with all these books, I was going to have to go out and do it myself. And, the only way you're going to achieve anything in life is if you persevere and you go out and push to go and do what you want to do. And that's something that, that's a core value in my life, is that if I want to do something in my life, I find a way to go out and do it. I mean, this is something I started, really pushing when I turned about 16. And I saw, the direction many of these African American males and females in the high school I was going to, Park West at the time, they were just going nowhere. And after I got mugged on the train, that's what really opened my eyes to the Negro. And I started to see many of the things like guys like your YouTubers like David Carroll and then the Iceman saw. Then I saw the road I was going on. And I said that because I really wanted God to change my life, and I prayed for Him to do it. And then I put the effort in, and I was able to change it. And I was able to, achieve achieve one of my major accomplishments, getting my high school diploma. Because at the time, my grade advisor pretty much written me off and said that there's no chance of me getting this diploma. And I had to persevere, and I had to sit there and say, I want this diploma. I have to go and do what I need to do to get it. And that meant I had to, make a lot of choices and a lot of sacrifices that were painful at the beginning, but, enabled me to achieve my goals. And yeah, I had to spend an extra year in high school, but at least I got my diploma. And then later on, I went and got my college degree, and, I just kept persevering, and I wanted to be a writer, so I started writing scripts and stuff. And then even with all the rejections I had to deal with in trade publishing, I said, if they're not going to make the type of books that I want to write, I said, I'm going to start my own publishing imprint. And everything that I had to do, again, was based on that decision that my mother made to say that I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to let my son be a victim. I'm not going to, let him take on this narrative of victimization where people make excuses for you and, do things for you and make you feel like you're less than, because I understand what the victim mindset is. It makes you feel like you're less than. People are feeling sorry for you. And again, like I said before, you're taking crumbs from people's tables and you're not going out and making your own cake. You could have, a lot more when you walk away from the victim narrative and start, creating your own path than you would if you stay on the victim road. Because on the victim road, everybody pretty much, it's a bad road. Because I remember, way back when I was in high school, when there were girls saying, you know what, I feel sorry for him. And I said to myself, you know what, that's just not good enough for me. I mean, if somebody says they feel sorry for you, that's like saying they have no respect for you. And I said to myself, I have value. And, if you can't respect me, then I won't be involved with you. And I said that way back at 16 years old, when this girl had said that to me. And she said, I just feel sorry for him. I'm like, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I want respect. And the only way for me to get respect is to, establish my own standards for myself. And that was one of those standards, that's part of my core values. I don't deal with people who feel sorry for me. I deal with people who respect me and will value me for who I am. And I do not, I never adopted that whole victimization narrative. And to me, I thank God that I have learned not to be a victim, because you're never going to achieve anything by being a victim. I mean, again, all you get is the crumbs from the table. All you get is scraps and leftovers and whatever people hand to you. You don't get, the very best out of life. You don't get to achieve, what you want to achieve. And then what happens is you wind up living life on somebody else's terms. And they're telling you how to live, and you're not telling yourself, how to live for yourself. Because as I see it, God has the very best out here for you. And He's eager to give it to you, but you have to make the efforts to go out and get it. And the only way you're going to get it is by saying, I want this enough to take off this victimization narrative and these ideas of a victim, because a victim is a powerless person. And when you have no power, other people have power over you. And the only way for you to get empower yourself is to stop being a victim and be a survivor. When I look at the African American community, we have so many people who are enabled to be victims because they believe, the lies that people tell them, like their families, many of these teachers, and many of these other people who never say to this person, you know what, you can do better, you can push, and, there's more for you to do in life than just sit here and, take substandard, because that's what we have learned, especially here in the Negro community, that, substandard or good enough is okay. And I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. I mean, you have to say to yourself that good enough isn't good enough. I mean, substandard can't be the standard. And this is the way I was raised and learned, that substandard is not the standard, that you have to bring your very best. And the sad part is, many of these Negroes in the community, they have grown up believing that, you know, half done, substandard, and mediocre are the best they can do. But when I look at people, and I always say to myself, you can always do better, you can always be better, and you can always try harder. And what you did today, you can do better. And this is something I learned from screenwriting, that what you wrote yesterday is not going to be as good as it is as what you write today. And in most cases, it's out of date. So this is why you always, strive to improve and strive to take yourself to the next level. And you always strive to keep pushing. And, this is just, again, my core values, that I never learned how to be a victim, because that's just not the way my mother and father raised me. They always, raised me to understand that, you just can't settle for it. Because if I had believed what people had told me, about my condition when I had this brain aneurysm at 7, for a lot of them, their idea was for me to be just sitting here collecting an SSI check and saying that I'm disabled. But here I am right now. I have my high school diploma, I have my college degree, I've written all of these books back here, plus more, and over close to 50 titles. And I've achieved all this because I did not allow myself, to adopt this victim narrative and, settle for less. Because I always saw, taking an SSI check and saying that I was disabled as giving up. I always saw that as saying that I was a failure. And for me, I don't want to be a failure. I really want to be a success, and this is what I've always wanted for myself. I've always wanted to be successful. I mean, I have achieved quite a bit of success in some ways. I mean, I'm not rich, but whenever I set a goal, I meet goals, and that's all because, again, the way I was raised. I was never raised to be a victim. I was never raised, to settle for less, because I always looked at that SSI check, saying that you're disabled, saying that you have some sort of brain damage, or you're some sort of thing, as, again, failure. And I also saw it, even with things that I struggle with, like shyness and anxiety, I still see that as giving up. And I just don't want to give up, because I remember what God told me way back in 2008, to keep going. And I want to, live the best life I can possibly be. And the only way I can do that is to keep going and to keep persevering and to keep pushing. And I want, other black people to understand this, because you too can have the very best if you keep persevering and keep pushing towards your goals, and trying and making every effort to try to achieve them. Because victims don't become victors. They don't win because they give up. And that's what the whole victimization narrative teaches you how to do, is to give up. And when you give up, you're not going to get anything, because you never really made an effort to try. And when you don't try, you're not going to get anything. But when you make every effort, even if you fail, and I've failed, quite a few times in my life. I've been fired from jobs, and I've failed classes, and it makes me want to just keep going, keep trying again and again. And sometimes you have to go around obstacles, but you have to find a way to overcome them. And it's just something that was a part of my life, again, from an early age. And you have to learn, as part of your core values, to not be a victim, because being a victim is the worst thing in the world. And I know this, again, from personal experience, because when people try to put you in the victim box, it's like saying that you have to settle for whatever people give you. You have to settle for substandard. You have to settle for mediocre. You have to take whatever garbage people give you, instead of going out and getting exactly what you want. Now, in some cases, you may not get exactly what you want, but if you trust God, you're going to get, whatever you're going to get it. You're going to get to achieve what you need at the right time. And what I've seen is, when you persevere and you get out of the victim box, you are going to get all those things that you work for. And you may not get them in the exact way that you want, and you may not get them, at the time that you want, but eventually you're going to get what you need, and it's going to be at the right time in the right place, and you're going to be mentally and emotionally ready for what you want to do. And you can only and all that whole journey starts by never adopting that whole victimization narrative and thinking like a victim. Because again, thinking like a victim, you're living on somebody else's terms and not your own.